Welcome and welcome back to Rooted to Thrive, conversations that elevate our humanity podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, aka Professor P. Well, today we have Adam Barney. Adam is an energy coach, author, and a podcaster. He's an energy coach helping emerging and executive leaders stay energized, make forward progress, and thrive with optimism. He is the author of Make Your Own Glass Half Full. I love that. The Path to Empowered Optimism and Autonomy. I know this is why y'all know I like him, right? And then he is a podcaster. He's the host of Is Anything Real in Paid Advertising, where they uncover what's real and what's just noise in marketing and leadership. Now, here's the real important stuff. My personal connection. Adam was one of my business coaches when I received a Comcast Rise grant in 2023. And we just had an instant connection. He helped me so much in the meetings that we had, but really I felt like I had gained in my friendship circle, right? And so, Adam, how you doing today?
Hanging in there, Rochelle. Thanks for having me. I'm really energized to be here. As Rochelle mentioned, I'm Adam W. Barney. I'll add that W in there just because it's important to me, but no harm, no foul there.
Okay. No, that's great. That's fantastic. Well, before we get started and talk about our topic today, which is from allyship to action, how leaders can use their power to build equity and justice, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Adam W. Barney?
Sure. So the path that's led me to launch this energy coaching practice, and I would love to say that coaching is all about mystical stones and sorcery, because if we could wave a magic wand, we could solve for a lot of things in the world. So when you talk about equity and justice, wouldn't that be an incredible platform if we could just do that to drive change in the world? But it's really about being there in people's back pocket to be a cheerleader and be a battery pack and help them take a vision and stay resilient towards it. But, my background spans over 20 years in corporate marketing. I managed over $100 million in ad spend across startups, venture capital backed companies, and enterprise scale global companies. But over the last few years, I've pivoted into coaching founders, executives, and emerging leaders. And what really drives me is one simple truth. Leadership isn't about holding the mic, it's about passing it, amplifying others, and actually eventually redesigning the system so they don't even need your mic. And that's what I'm here to explore with Rochelle today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this work.
Yeah. So my path into this work is truly something that's personal. Even as a white male in the world for over 40 years, I've, lived with the confidence, of course, and the access that comes from that positioning here in the US. And honestly, I've often wished I could bottle that up. The positional power, the baseline of being taken seriously, and let's say handed out like Gatorade at a marathon. Too many brilliant leaders honestly never get handed that bottle. And that's what truly drives me now. It's all about, working to redistribute privilege into tools, resources, and systems that give access and confidence to people who don't come from that same background. And then
Yes.
I'll also add to that, losing my mom, it'll be 11 years ago in November, to ALS, deepened the urgency I felt to do meaningful work. That was also amplified by, I have to pull this in, although it's not linear there, with the recent 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina decimating New Orleans. I actually met my wife doing Hurricane Katrina relief work down there about a year and a half after that storm devastated that city. And those kinds of things, losing my mom to ALS, doing that work in New Orleans after the storm, where 18 months basically after a storm, we were walking into houses that had not been opened since the storm hit. It was an incredibly transformative experience. And now, fast forward to today, raising two young daughters keeps equity extremely personal for me. I don't want them to have to fight for access. I would rather have it be their baseline. And also, Rochelle, mentoring underrepresented founders through the Comcast Rise grant program, which I'm heading into the third year of that. So that's been over 200, and it'll be 300 by next year, showed me and confirmed in me that brilliance is everywhere, but that opportunity out there is not. One founder that I've coached told me, Adam, no one's ever slowed down long enough to ask me what I actually need. And that was one of those key moments helping me realize that allyship isn't about telling. It's truly about slowing down, listening, and acting with intention.
Yes, yes, it is. And I love where you started. You said that you want to pass along the privilege that has been afforded to people who look like you, right? Who have, the same biological sex.
Right.
And it is that when I first started doing the work that I do in the world as a justice educator, I don't say justice educated person. I that was my language, right? Like it's not about like beating people over the head about their privilege. It's about helping you understand how you, well, one, have it,
Yep.
because many people don't know, and
Right.
then how to pass it along. And I was coming from a privileged space myself. I know those on YouTube can see my face, right? Like this sun-kissed brown lady. Um, but I had a lot of educational privileges because the people in schools, right,
Yep.
in families, educational spaces really valued what I valued, right? Or maybe I learned to value what they valued. And I just so happened to be one of those children that was a little more advanced than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And people just kept pushing me up, pushing me up, pushing me up. I would not have known about private school, like how to get in. We were definitely not looking because we didn't have money,
Right.
right? And found the A Better Chance program because an educator tapped me on the shoulder.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually skipped kindergarten because a yeah, it started early.
All right.
Tapped me on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I go to private school. I'm wind up at Bucknell University because someone tapped me on the shoulder. Nobody in Brooklyn, New York heard about Bucknell. In Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. I mean, they were on the map, just weren't on ours.
Right.
And then, just these taps on the shoulder. And I look back and said, oh, that's the difference.
Right.
And that's the difference between, you know, why people in my neighborhood or my cousins weren't getting tapped. Like,
Right.
what was the difference?
What's
Yeah.
the difference? Where does that come from? And it's incredible. I talk about, in one of the earlier chapters in my book,
Mhm,
I remember vividly being about 10 years old, and I was pulled in to pitch in the bottom of the ninth inning for the Little League team, right? And
mhm.
I'm a lefty, so I'm the unique, person who can get up there and throw strikes. I strike the last batter out to end the game and win the game with, three, 1, 2, 3 pitches. It's a strikeout. Who am I pitching to? The only girl who's in the Little League. And that's what stuck with me. I vividly remember after the game not celebrating the win, but wondering, why is that the only girl in the league? That something
Mm,
didn't feel right about that. And then I'm glad, Rochelle, you mentioned actually the A Better Chance program. I had a friend in high school who was part of a Better Chance program. I grew up in Western Massachusetts.
Mhm.
He ended up, being brought up from a host family in my town in Western Massachusetts from Queens.
Mhm.
And he ended up going to, RTI, Rochester Technical
Yes.
Institute. It
Yes.
changed his trajectory. And I always remember having conversations with him and, you know, being fascinated by the fact that he came from this completely different world, but it was a world where his unique experiences came to the forefront and they came out in how he operated through that program. But what led him to become an engineer? It's incredible, the trajectory. And
Yes.
I won't talk too much about my book. I have one visualization in my book, and it's this fantastic visualization that has that equates to the nonlinearity of our paths in our
Yes.
lives. And it talks about, it's a timeline.
Mhm.
Today's right in the middle, and you've got a bunch of before today, you have a bunch of wiggly lines, and you've got some black lines and one green line. That's the path you followed till today. But then
Mhm.
you look after today into the future, and it's equally complex, wiggly lines going into the future. So those things that can push us in different directions, if we're open-minded to them, can help us grow. But it's where I come from, and I think that there's a place where we're seeing an increased understanding of how leaders are wanting to do better. But I see there still in this day and age, and increasingly so, three big barriers that come up time and time again.
Okay.
To equate it to where we are today, there's a fear of getting it wrong. Leaders freeze. They'd rather stay silent than risk saying the wrong thing. There's also performative allyship, is what I like to actually call it. People who have statements without systems, without standing up and actually showing up. I'm not downplaying the impact of diversity pledges, but there are so many pledges that are made that never reach the ground, or they talk
Mhm.
out of two sides of their mouth.
Mhm.
Then there's actually a burnout that I start to see. People treat
Mhm.
allyship like a sprint, but it's actually a marathon. Change doesn't happen quickly. You have to put building block on top of building block, and that's where true change comes together.
Yes. 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 And yes, I love it. Well, first of all, can I just back up because you started talking about going, somebody in the ABC program. So this is it. I don't know why I just need to say this. My mother, so I was 13 when I was going into the program. This isn't for context.
Yep.
My mother was like, no, no, sir, no, ma'am. My child is not going away. I am not finished raising her. So a nod to Elizabeth Singleton Cocktail today.
Yep.
Because, right, like for her family values, no way was her
Right.
child going to go away
Right.
and be left to other people to nurture. And that's what you're doing
How did
when,
can
mhm.
I ask you there,
Go
Rochelle,
ahead. Go ahead.
how did her mindset evolve in that time? Or where did that or
It
was it
didn't,
an issue that was forced also?
no, we didn't go. I went to Brooklyn Friends School in Brooklyn where we lived. I
Oh,
was a train ride away. I came home to my family every day. So ABC
wow.
doesn't force you to go away. They have day schools and they have schools that board their
Right.
students.
Okay. All right. That's a distinction I did not realize.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. To that question, hell to the no. She said, no, no way. And I'm so glad she did.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's interesting because that also influenced my trajectory as a leader, right?
Mm,
I was in private school that was predominantly white.
yep.
Uh, I mean, we were going into downtown Brooklyn, so that's a whole nother thing, right? Like, so a block away, you see a bunch of brown and Mexican and
Yep.
Asia. You see all of America a
Right.
block away. So that didn't feel different to me. But I literally walked into uh, a building with carpeted floors, a greeter at the door, a elevator attendant. Very different from my home in East New
Yep.
York, where
Yep.
I did feel safe.
Yep.
It was safe at the time, but we were walking into buildings with bulletproof glass,
Yep.
hard concrete floors, an elevator, no attendant,
Right. Right.
and a very dark, damp, like a dim light in a long hallway to
Yeah.
our apartment from the elevators.
But safe and just but transported. It's
Yeah,
incredible the width of what safe can feel like, right? And
yes,
um
yes.
I end up in my coaching and other things that I start to do talking about the trauma that we all face. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the flip side to the coin. Trauma for me feels, from my experiences, this high. Trauma inside yourself or anyone else also feels this high, but from an outward perspective, my trauma could be this big and yours
Mm-hmm.
can be this big.
Right.
But the feeling inside of the trauma we've each faced in our lives feels monumental
Mental. Right.
to each of us. And I don't think there's a wide understanding of that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where, in my coaching and working with people and being an ally in this world, it's all about understanding people's origin stories and meeting them
Yes.
where they come from, not
Mm-hmm.
where I come from. And that's
Yes.
critical in any relationship that I've built over 43 years of a couple days of life.
That's
But
right.
it's about meeting people where they are.
Yes.
One thing I don't think we have enough of in this world from a non-religious context is grace. And it's grace for ourselves, grace for others, and grace for situations around us. If we give
Yes.
a little bit more space, a little bit
Mhm.
more silence, it can pay off in spades for how we can impact the trajectory of other people.
Yes, yes, yes. And in the spirit of uh, the Baptist church, that's a word. That is a
Yeah.
word right there.
Right?
Because, it's just so interesting that to me that so many of us just don't get that we have been shaped by similar influences. And a lot of people don't, I teach teachers as well, or teach educators. They're not all teachers as well. And I find, especially in that industry, right? Like it's just perplexing to me that people don't understand how there are other influences beyond your family.
Yep.
Yes.
Right?
Uh, that influence how you think about yourself and how you think about other people
Right.
and your who you are, your background, but more importantly, how you see yourself influences your behavior everywhere, all day, and it is a human condition.
That is right.
Yes, yes. And while today we're going to be talking about humans who are leaders, right? And how they can use
I mean,
their,
isn't luckily, even if with the impact of AI in the world,
oh,
still every
mm,
business is owned by a human. Every human operates independently in this world and comes with a
mhm,
unique set. It's like our fingerprint, right? Our
yes.
fingerprint is unique to us. We each have
Mhm,
unique experiences, whether it's family, friends, economic situation, where you grow up geographically, societal impacts, teachers,
mhm,
educators around you. We're all unique from the experiences that have taken us to where we are today.
yes.
And we need to be confident in that and lean into that. I argue actually that we need to lean into that more the
Mm-hmm.
center of what drives us. I like to use a tool called ikigai, which is the Japanese concept for reason for being, to dig into some visioning work with my coaching clients early.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties together what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And when
Right.
you sit in the center of that vision, that aligns so closely to what's right in the middle of you. It gets into what's at the heart of you. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can use those different influences that come from your unique background or expertise. And that's where, as a coach, I like to come in and say, maybe you've gone down the stereotypical path that society says you should go down. When you look at the center of what actually drives you, can you build something unique? Can you take this experience in the world and turn it into something where you're feeling more confident in what you're doing, but also you're feeling more satisfied in the work that you're doing and you're helping the world become a better place? That's transformative. That's a big, big shift to make. And I think I continue to see more leaders, as I mentioned earlier, trying to focus on that. But then it gets
Mm-hmm.
into Rochelle, shifting from intention into action.
Yes.
And I love to guide leaders through what I call an energy-driven allyship framework. And it's a
Okay.
simple set of 4 practices, right? The first being audit your influence. Write down the rooms you're in, the decisions you touch, and then ask who or what is missing there.
Mm-hmm.
With one leader who realized she controlled millions in vendor budgets, and she always talked about supporting more diverse founders, women, other enterprises led by those kinds of folks. And she shifted spend then intentionally toward women and minority owned businesses. That's a small shift, but it's
Yes.
influence in action. And then
Yes.
the second one in this, I would say, is I've always loved in hearing people's origin stories and meeting them where they are. It's about not holding the mic close, and we both have mics in front of us. It's about sharing the mic. It's
Yes.
about handing over speaking time, recommending someone else for a panel. How many
Mm-hmm.
panels in the world these days are white male, white male, white male, white male? Recommend someone else for the panel. Get rid of. I have a equity leader that I love. She calls them manels, actually, because they're all male led panels. Get different voices, get different spaces and perspectives on those panels. Even though more simply amplify a peer's idea in a meeting. I truly believe that you don't lose power by sharing it. Power isn't like pizza. It's more like playlists. The more voices, the better the mix sounds.
Yes. Indeed.
And
The
then,
pois.
yeah, getting like into the third pillar of this, though, it's about you need to bake equity into processes. You can't
Mm-hmm.
rely just on good intentions. One nonprofit that I had the opportunity to work with redesigned its hiring panels to always include diverse voices.
Mm-hmm.
That was across quarterly check-ins. So that's something that's repeatable and sustainable equity,
Mm-hmm.
not just lip service equity in spaces.
That's
And then
right.
I really, as an energy coach, I can't leave the fourth pillar out, but that's managing your own energy. Allyship truly does require stamina. And you can't sustain this work if you're running on empty, or you just look at the roadblocks that we face in this wild world that we're in these days. You can't have that tank be empty. And part of my coaching is helping leaders build rhythms that prevent burnout that comes from running on empty. And energy management, it's more than just leadership work, it's equity work, because burned out leaders don't just build systems, they transform the world around themselves.
Yes, they do. Yeah, that's great. So I hear the 4 pillars: audit your influence, share the mic, or pass the mic. How about that? uh,
Yeah,
bake equity into your processes and manage your own energy.
exactly.
And you said these four pillars are addressing three major areas, right? That you find among leaders, and that's this fear of getting things wrong, performative allyship, and burnout.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All
Exactly.
right. So let's jump into it. So you shared a little bit about each, right? The auditing your influence, passing along the mic, baking in equity into processes, managing your own energy. I'm curious, what are some of the common challenges you encounter when you're working with, coaches or working with, I mean, coaching, when you're coaching or working with companies in promoting equity and access or helping them address these four
I
pillars?
mean, it really gets into a lot of people have a misconstrued understanding of power and influence in the
Okay.
organizations they sit. I think, especially when you look at large organizations and junior employees, mid-level employees who aren't in a management leadership position, they think of themselves as worker bees and they don't have influence, but there is influence to manage up.
Mhm.
You know, early in my corporate career, moving from an independent contributor into a leadership position, my perspective was always just naturally, I'm not just here to support my employees in a day-to-day, have day-to-day success. I want to give them the tools that get them to the next job and then the job after that, that elevate up in the world. That was the perspective that I always had. But in this day and age, and this is across education, this is across, a capitalist society and corporate leadership, there's no systemized management leadership regimen to bring people through who just transition from being an independent contributor into a leadership position.
Mhm.
So you have a lot of leaders. I've had leaders that I've been managed by in my career who set us on a downward trajectory. They're not transparent. They don't share goals. They micromanage. They shut the environment down. That can be successful, but it doesn't empower employees.
Right.
It doesn't empower diverse voices to feel confident in speaking up. Elevating together is a different management style, and we need more of
Yes.
that in the world.
Yes, we do. I was just talking to an assistant in my company today, where something wasn't working well, right, for them, right? Like, so they weren't remembering something, like, they didn't have a system to keep track of the many moving parts. And at the end, as I helped them think of ways, we thought together of ways they could track those things. At the end of the conversation, I really felt I had to say something that based on an assumption, right? Like, so I assume that the employee feels like, well, they have to do what their supervisor tells them to do. And I'm like, if something's not working in the rhythm, so I felt compelled to say this. If
Yep.
something's not working well in the rhythm, you have all of the opportunity and space with me to say, hey, I think this works better now that I've noticed a pattern
Yep.
of when I miss things, this, scheduling or whatever, if it works for you, say something. I don't even know that it's an opportunity until you tell me. And
Yep.
let me tell you, if it works, I will let you know if it works for me too. I am open to that. I knew I had to say that because we're not training people that way.
Right. Right.
We're not, right.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
it's the hunger that's inside to make change. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how those are the employees that I love to hire, who you could tell they were
Yes.
moldable, but they
Mm-hmm.
were hungry. Those are the two different things to make change. And society doesn't impact or influence us to think in that manner. It
Right.
tells us that we should get comfortable and sit in the corner that we were put in.
That,
Or I think we need to stand up and get into the middle of the room and not shout, but observe first.
yes.
I mean,
Do you,
let me take you through one story, Rochelle.
please?
There was a nonprofit that I was coaching, and the sentiment with them was that their DEI statements were not translating into actual change.
Okay.
So I came in and we ran an allyship audit. So first we mapped positional power. We talked about budgets, we talked about hiring, we talked about partnerships, and then we asked who isn't in that picture? Where are they? So the answers that emerged from those conversations, and that didn't all happen in one conversation, it was in a series of conversations because people's mindsets needed to be opened, the aperture needed to shift a little bit, but it shifted everything. They built diverse hiring panels by design, not just by happenstance or accident. They, again, as one of the previous examples mentioned, redirected vendor budgets toward BIPOC, local BIPOC owned businesses. They set up quarterly accountability reviews, and none of it was flashy. It's not the kind of things that get picked up in the press or, you can post about on LinkedIn or social media, but it rewired the internal system and that changed people's lives in a real manner. And that
Yes.
that I think leads to allyship beyond slogans, right? It's
Mhm.
not, it's you need to systemize those changes to make them actually play out in reality in a system.
That's right. Right. And like you said, it's not going to be the things that you can just, you can post
Yep.
just that make you look like the great. It's interesting why this came in my head, like the great white hope. I don't know. That's a term from back in the day.
Yeah.
But right, to look and to be honest, there are, especially based from a religious perspective,
Hmm.
right? There are a lot of people who have this missionary type,
Right.
um, that have this missionary perspective of help,
Right.
right?
Right.
And don't really interrogate the fact that it it that perspective assumes that whom you're helping doesn't have any level of agency themselves
Any level of autonomy is what I would
or autonomy. Yes,
autonomy, agency, that in that self-determination piece
that's
that's so
right.
critical that sits inside change makers in the world.
Right. Or anything to contribute,
Right.
as opposed, right? So the missionary perspective is kind of like, we have the thing that you need that you're missing. And it's like, well, maybe they're not missing anything in terms of their ability,
Right.
although they, right? Like you as an individual human is not missing anything,
Mm,
right? But
great point.
access is different than I'm going to, deliver, I don't know, water to your
Right.
community or right, like
Right. Right.
these things that you need. Access helps you, and equitable access.
Equitable access. Exactly. Right.
Right.
Well, and I
Ac-
mean, I like to think about, where do people start, right? So the
yes.
challenge that I like to bring out there is picked one small act of redistribution this week.
Okay.
Is it sharing or passing the mic? Is it shifting a budget line? Is it
Hmm.
mentoring someone who doesn't have your access or doesn't come from the same background?
Yes.
It doesn't, don't overcomplicate it.
Hmm.
Small, and when you start small, you can repeat often, and then if folks are hungry to go deeper, I recommend Minda Hart's The Memo or
Hmm.
Dolly Cuff's The Person You Mean to Be, and also communities that I love to partner with, like All Raise and Scroobius. These are
Okay.
all people who are rewriting rather the playbook for equity that goes into business, but also extends beyond that.
Hmm. Yes, excellent, and I appreciate that. So coming from the education world, we A lot of people aren't listening or reading. People who come from corporate, like I know Minda Hart is out of corporate. I see her on LinkedIn all the time. And that's another thing. Don't limit yourself. I've never limited myself. And, unfortunately, there's some value in it. But when people are trained to focus from a discipline
Yep.
perspective, right? Like to be very focused like that, we tend not to go out and reach out for that information in other spaces. Now, some people are, but especially the justice focused educators, do go out because they go out to the families and to the communities, right? Like out of the ivory tower,
Right.
as opposed, right? As opposed to get their information instead of
Right.
seeing them as subjects, right, for research. And I would say all justice education folks would say that we're going to learn from the community in order to create an initiative together. We create together. That's leadership.
Right.
Yes. and,
Exactly.
and you bring all your confidence as a leader and the wider view, because everyone does not see what you can see from where you sit.
Right.
And
I
you,
like to, in that perspective, I like to think in Venn diagrams. It's like a simple
okay,
way to think about it, right?
yes,
The overlap, find those people you have some tangential overlap with,
yes,
but they have a different set of understanding and expertise that helps elevate your understanding. It's
yes,
it's the ability to be open, give that space, understand where people are coming from, meet them where they are, but then you have to hold a mirror up to yourself after that to reflect what comes from other people back at yourself and really take it to be an agent of change. For me,
yes.
it's here in Boston. It's showing up into rooms where I'm one of maybe 5 or 10 men, let
Hmm.
alone white men, in a room of 200 diverse faced women. That's the
Hmm.
position I love to play. That's the room I love to be in the middle of, because I meet people who come from very different places than where I come from, but I learn how to operate better as myself in the world through those kinds of conversations. And there's a lot that needs to change in this world, but it's getting more people who do look like me to stand up and start to do some of those things. And maybe it's in a corporate role. They're thinking about, allyship and how to do that. Maybe it's even in an education leadership perspective. You're trying to increase equity and access to the students in front of you or the
Hmm.
wider school community around you.
Yes.
In any of these cases, though, allyship isn't a badge, right? It's a
Mhm.
practice. It's
That's right.
and it's also not about how loud your mic is. It's again, like you just mentioned, it's about who you pass it to and how you work together to redesign the system. So, people don't even need to think about it anymore. That's the mission that I have in my mind. How do we not need to worry about this problem of difference? We're all humans.
That's
We
right.
all come from diverse, different places and backgrounds. Let's all meet together because that brings us closer, and that allows us to understand each other and impact the world in a more positive manner.
That's right. And yes, and I will say this because I always say that, like, I don't leave the white man out of the diversity discussion. I know what's meant. We have a shorthand for it in the US and how we talk, but you are a part of the diversity that exists. Okay. So that's my only pushback on you, Adam. And
And believe me, Rochelle, I've always loved the difficult. Don't say everything is fine and perfect. It's about challenging, right? Because the
that's right.
challenge and being open to that feedback is also critical. So many leaders in the world shut down when people question what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have you tell me I'm doing something wrong, or I need to shift the way I'm thinking about something, or I didn't understand the complexity of even the ABC program earlier in our
Mm-hmm.
conversation. You
True.
opened my eyes up to a different perspective and understanding that I didn't have 45 minutes ago.
Right. True. Right. And there's somebody out there who wouldn't get their transformation from me, like somebody who is a white male that would not have access to get his transformation through me and my coaching if I thought, right, that that difference was
Yep.
so fixed.
Right.
And it's interesting, right? Many of us do go toward to help people who do look like us, have similar backgrounds, which does make a lot of sense.
True.
But listen, some of us are on the mission to literally touch this world.
Yeah.
Okay, the earth. I'll say the earth, okay, because I don't know anything about beyond that. But
I, maybe it's the universe. I don't know. We're
I don't know
close.
about, yeah, I'm just saying me. Like, I don't know that I was designed beyond Earth, like to help beyond Earth. But for, anyone who can receive this, their opportunity to shift.
Right.
When we're talking about humans and humanity, we need each other. We need each other and we need to expand our view. I'm all for the white male speaking to the white male, and I am all for the white male uh, getting what he needs as well from through me.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that's why I said that in particular it does inform my leadership. It does inform how I walk into rooms because at an early age, I experienced being in the majority
Yep.
and then in a minority in number at a private school, right?
Right.
And this is paid education. Most of the people are white.
Right.
Yes, but I was going to school with other people who were teenagers. That's what I knew,
Right.
right?
Right.
And something became normalized for me interacting across that. And fortunately, I believe I stayed at the home front to continue to be developed by Elizabeth,
Yep.
yes, and the rest of my family
Right.
so that I knew who I was because it was still enough to go to college at 16, right? Like
Ooh,
now,
that's a unique positioning, right? Because a lot of people get shown
mhm,
one world, not the other world, but it opens up that ability to extend beyond, right?
mhm, yes, it does. And talk about diversity in age, right? Like I was only a few years younger,
Right. Right.
but 16-year-old immaturity showed up by the end of the first semester. But that's all I'll say about
We all go through those challenges in life though, right? The
Yes,
things that
yes,
we
we
do,
do.
the times when we go a little off course, but
Hmm.
ultimately we navigate ourselves back to the center of where we were focused to begin.
Yes,
We can hit
to
those
begin.
roadblocks, and as long as we don't fall down and not get up again and start to atrophy, and we flex those muscles and we're
Yes.
open-minded to keep flexing those muscles, the impact gets bigger and bigger. The network gets bigger. The influence gets bigger. I like to actually talk in leadership about, you know, number one, it's fixing your own energy in terms of leadership and moving it in the right direction.
Yeah.
But then when you do that up here, the ripple effects start to emanate downward.
Hmm. Yes. Yes, it does. The ripple effect does emanate through the leader. Yeah, oftentimes people think that they are locked away in the office, they don't see the people. I think
Yep.
that's why I like that show where it's Undercover Boss. Is that it?
Yep. Yeah. Right.
And
Exactly.
I mean, I like the show in general, and they have some giveaways that are great. But what I absolutely love is folks that, even if they had been on the front line before, it demonstrates how much you forget
Hmm.
as you shift and
Right.
move up.
As you change seasons in life or the chapter changes to the next chapter, you do forget where you come from. And
Come on now.
that's where reflecting is so critical, right?
Yes, it is.
Taking that space to sit back and think about the
Yes.
things that led you to where you are today because they still impact you. Maybe it's
Yeah,
not in the front of your brain, maybe it's in the back of your brain or in your muscle memory somewhere also, but
that's right.
those things come back and they do reflect outwardly whether we're cognizant of it or not.
Or not. Yes. And Adam, I wanted to you brought up something really critical, not forgetting where you came from. So that's something I grew up hearing over and over again. And that influences even some things that may have been a little more traumatic for me because I internalized something and maybe had at some points put a lid on my own growth because I didn't want to forget where I
Right,
came from.
right.
There are spaces in which that leaders occupy where that is so critical to not forget,
Yep.
because oftentimes if we think, especially if you have more financial um, growth, right,
Right. Right.
your
Stability,
socioeconomic status
stability, growth.
changes,
Yes, right. Yep.
right, and when your socioeconomic status changes and you forget where you came from.
I mean, I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch the incredible um some of the incredible documentaries that Questlove has put together, but
Oh,
you talk about Sly from Sly and the Family Stone,
hmm
going from a low status on the socioeconomic tree to having an incredible amount of success in that realm. And it changes them in that documentary. They talk of, it's you go from that one world to the bigger world that seems more successful, and
hmm
then you lose the threads of what kept you grounded in the world you came from. And that's
yes.
a terrible recanting of that documentary. I love anything that Questlove touches is gold, in my opinion.
Yes.
Fly in the Family Stone documentary from a music perspective is
hmm
fantastic.
Yes.
I want to say it was Andre 3000 who actually, talked about that, of how you come out of one space historically and you
hmm
don't know how to operate in the next space that you get to. But that's the extreme other side of forgetting where you come from and not being
Right.
grounded and reminding yourself of where you come from.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people who forget are the ones who they don't have that super success, right? Like we're not talking about celebrity level
Yep.
success, but they are really different. Even, some people come from middle class, like lower middle class, to making, well, nowadays middle class might be $100,000. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like,
The wild world in that sense that we're in these days of
yeah, they're at a point where they can do things with discretionary funds that they might not have before,
right,
and they place some value on that
right,
that that actually speaks volumes about what they thought of themselves before, right? Like when they forget, in my mind, it means that they have forgotten, like when they forget where they came from, they're
yep,
not remembering that they had value when they had less
right,
of the things, right?
right,
And the trappings of certain socioeconomic statuses.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Right.
that bleeds through, right? Like that's class difference.
Yeah.
So you could be looking through that lens at another white male in that case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, so all of our identities carry with us, right?
Yep.
And we mustn't forget where we came from. But when we talk about really sustainable, equitable access, give us your final word on that before we go.
I mean, it's about opening doors for other people. That's really what it
Yes.
comes down. Like how many,
Mhm.
from a politeness perspective, if you're walking into the grocery store and you open the door for yourself and someone is a few steps behind you, naturally, aren't you just going to hold that door open and not let it close before they can walk in? Maybe we're at a place in the world where 50% of the people might let that door immediately close behind them. But think about that. Just that is the example of how you can hold the door open and imagine the impact. Also, I like to remind people, when is the last time you've been out on the street or somewhere walking around and you just say hi to someone that you don't know who looks
Mhm.
different than you? That's the easiest place to start, even as a leader who has found massive amounts of success, or, a leadership in a education system or a school. How
Mhm.
many times How regularly do you do that? Maybe make it a simple goal of meeting someone you've never met before who doesn't necessarily look just like you in the community that you live, or the places that you go, and you might learn something unique. It's an
Yes.
easy, it's hard the first time you do it. I
Mhm.
have I have someone in my network who talks about the most valuable class that she had in college was a negotiation class, and the assignment that the professor gave them in that class was to come up with three completely nonsensical ideas and then walk out onto the street and try to get people to invest in those ideas.
Mhm.
So, it's like, build a slingshot that'll send a unicorn into space.
Right.
Would you invest in that? And she
Mhm.
said the most incredible piece of that, after you get over the hump of bringing ridiculous ideas to strangers,
Right.
the biggest impact she got was how many people actually said, well, yeah, I'll support that. Or, yes, I'll help you figure out a way to do that. It just
Interesting.
shows that we're closer as humans more than we might think we are if we're open to having conversations, and maybe just, putting blinders on and then starting to talk to someone
Mhm.
and realizing they come from a different place and meeting them where they are.
Yes,
And,
indeed.
Rochelle, I would say, if our fantastic conversation today has anyone out there thinking from a leadership perspective, I want to lead differently. I
Mhm.
want to energize myself and my team while making a bigger impact that's fairer and more sustainable. That's the work that I'm doing every day as an energy coach. I love helping
Mhm.
leaders audit the influence, reclaim that energy, and, build true equity into the leadership systems.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I want to thank you for being so generous and sharing your experience, generous with your time with us as well. So tell the people listening today how they can reach you.
Perfect, Rochelle. Yeah, if
Mhm.
you're ready to explore that, head to adamwbarney.com. There you'll find my energy blueprint workbook. You can also look up my book, Make Your Own Glass Half Full, that Rochelle mentioned at the top.
Mhm.
And, or find me on LinkedIn. That's a
Mhm.
great way to connect with me directly about coaching. And that allows us to plug in, power up, and thrive with justice and optimism at the core.
I love it. Adam, again, thank you. And I want to thank our listeners, everyone who stopped by. Please leave a comment, share this episode widely, and definitely subscribe. And I want to just thank everyone again and again for listening to Rooted to Thrive.